First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers for such a nice, interesting conference, and I'm really happy to be here to share my research with you, and also to be one of the Spanish representatives of the Spanish Egyptology. Yep. So, as you may deduct from the title of my presentation, is going to deal with Egyptian art, especially during the New Kingdom. Yep. I will rather sit down. So I usually prefer to stand up, but I will try to be brief. Okay, so in this research, what I am trying to do is to explore the question of the spread of innovation and new discovery resources in the New Kingdom art and connect it with the movement of artists. So I will focus on three groups of sources: private 18th and 19th dynasty Theban tombs, making painting as relief, Amarna tombs, and also to some extent to private Memphite New Kingdom tombs, especially Amarna and post-Amarna. So just I would like to have in mind that these kind of private tombs are made of scenes produced by artists for a specific audience. Yeah, so the iconographical program is quite different from the one you could find in a royal tomb. Yeah, of course, the movement of artists is not the only explanation for the transmission of motifs. So portable objects, got many types of textiles, scarabs, and everything. Could be portable vehicles of iconography, but they have a limited function. Yeah. Maybe one of the best exceptions could be the well-known wooden painted chest from Tutankhamun with wonderful paintings, very detailed ones. Yeah. Also, metal objects, some of them related to private people or to royal people, could be considered as elements of the spread of royal iconography. And also, we can consider ostraca as a way of spreading the innovations. But so this is quite different. So to know if we can consider ostraca portable objects, because so they should be heavy, and some of them at least. So you can find wonderful examples of ostraca, as the well-known ostraca in the TV Museum, many others on Berlin, but also some ostraca. So I would like to show you this interesting example from the Fitzwilliam Museum, which shows some kind of preparatory sketch of the artist trying to copy or to emulate or to practice or wherever this kind of composition in the tombs. Also, we got the well-known wooden boards that artists used to practice as well as scribes. Yeah, I would like to show you one of the recent discoveries of the Spanish mission. So I would like to thank Dr. José Manuel Galán for sending me this nice picture, which is a wooden board found in the Tomb of Yehudi, TT11, which probably shows the detail of a drawing first made by the master artist and copied in a very rough manner by the apprentice. Yeah, and also on the verse of this wooden tablet, very interesting one, you could find the figure of a king, with a crown, with a dagger. So probably part of some sketch of a hunting scene, and also with the reeds, which are very typical from this period. So with this funny sentence, so you cannot put a tomb on board. So it was just to remark the importance of having in mind that the whole iconographic program of a tome. So you cannot move it, yeah? So you can interchange ideas. So of course we may consider the existence of pattern books and so on, but tomes do not move. So artists may be considered as agents of innovations and new styles dissemination, yeah? Apart of course and complemented by the role of portable objects. So we've got also data from the Bruton sources as the Juratic Ostraka, so which was were mentioned of one of the presentations, wonderful presentation of yesterday. So they testify also the varied origin of artists. Yeah? Also many stela give us information about, for example, about Dedia, who was director of the scribes of forms of Amun, and he's said to be born of a lineage of painters of Levantine origins. Yeah? And also the Juratic Ostraka, some of them which are being studied by Betsy Bryan, show that the individuals working in the Theban tombs had a really varied origin. Yeah? So some of them appear to be Theban, but others from other sides, such as Armand, Nefrusi, and also places in Middle Egypt, so quite far from the Theban necropolis. Another piece of evidence that I want to consider is the unfinished Theban tombs. Yeah? So the wonderful research conducted by Dimitri Laburi in some of the Theban tombs has shown that tombs were built and decorated on several stages. For example, being excavated and decorated simultaneously, so not just something like you do the whole tomb and then you start to plaster and then, so at least in many of the private tombs, the schedule was not so well organized. Yeah? And probably this shows the real scarcity of artists. Yeah? So most tombs, so I think that maybe some scholars say that all tombs in ancient Egypt, especially in New Kingdom, were left unfinished. So, from my opinion, so the sudden death of the tomb owner may not be the explanation for every single unfinished tomb. Yeah. So we should have to look for any other possible explanations. So I've also tested many unfinished tombs at Amarna. So there's a very interesting study conducted by Owen and Ken. So they analyzed, especially about tomb building, not tomb decoration, that out of the all of the private tombs, 43 private tombs in Tel and Amarna are unfinished. The degree of incompletion varies, but the evidence may throw light to the question of different patterns of work and the availability of artists, which was probably really scarce, especially for private tombs, because we may suppose that the best artists were employed on the royal list of progress of Akhenaten. And also, for example, in this study, they suggest that some younger tombs, which are usually dated as young tombs, achieve more decoration than other tombs considered to be older. So we should be cautious with how do we use complexion of tomb and iconographic elements to date exactly these tombs in the Amarna period. So I just wanted to consider if we can think that unfinished tombs are evidence of the movement of artists, which I do really think is the case, and mainly of the scarcity of artists. And we may suggest if the work of artists was freelance, yeah, or not. So this is a very difficult question, and I'm going to go through this point, yeah. But what I would like to remark is the innovation that we attest on many new Egyptian tombs. So this is part of a research that I've been conducting in the past years. So it's presented part of my research on last year on the Young Egyptologist Congress in Vienna. So there are some novel elements which are common in the Memphite tombs and in the contemporary Theban tombs. So this has not been studied nearly, so I think the only recent study about this topic is the one conducted by Shahawi, very interesting one. And so trying to explore which was the pioneer area adopted this novel depiction. Somebody was, you can attest this in first, you can attest this kind of novel or innovation first in the north or in the south. Yeah. Of course, what I would like to have in mind in all this kind of context is that we know, of course, and it's not something new, that artists were moved from Thebes to Amarna when Akhenaten decided to build his new capital. And so what happened afterwards? So it is supposed that these artists mainly moved to the new capital, to Memphis, what you know, we can find very high quality private tombs. And also, some of them may have returned to Thebes. Of course, the best example of the presence of good artists in Amarna is the workshop of Tutmosis. He's probably the creator of the most famous sculpture of the Amarna period. It's just the Nefertiti sculpture. But also we can trace the dissemination of artists from Amarna, so these Amarna painters or sculptors, returning to Thebes. Probably, especially they had close connections, they had family ties in Thebes, so probably coming back to the roots, to the origin. Yeah? So there are several studies about this post-Amarna style in the Theban tombs. For example, the one conducted by Nadine Cherpion. She has analyzed several things in the tomb of Ipui, TT 217, with a strong naturalistic rendering, yeah? And very similar to the representation we found in, for example, from the Green Room in Amarna. So this is very important because we are connecting palatial painting with private painting, so from Amarna and to Thebes. So Ipui also has, this tomb has many important representations about artists. So the role of these men in the, you know, in the spread of some iconographic elements could be important. Also, I have dealt with some specific things that you may find in Amarna tombs and in Theban tombs and also in Memphis. Yeah, I'm trying to look for very specific things because, for example, you may think that you've got tribute as things, this kind of with depiction of foreigners in Amarna and in Thebes, but this is a very common and traditional topic. So maybe we look at a specific detail, we could trace more or less how this innovation moved from one place to another. So I have dealt with mourning things with a very in a very brief research that I did last year, and it has to do with the type of themes in Egyptian painting, New Kingdom painting, that are that show a very deep expression of feelings. Yeah. So this is, you would say that this is obviously a common feature for women, but not for men. So it seems that at the end of the 18th dynasty, so just before, before Akhenaten and especially at Amarna, we've got many representations of mourning men in a very active and expressive way, which is quite unusual in the New Kingdom paintings. In Amarna, you can find mourning men, for example, in the tomb of Ulia, and probably they were transferred to Theban tombs. The tomb of Neferhotep, TT 49, Tempus Eyes, is a wonderful example. So you can see here the mourning men. So you see the group of traditional mourning women raising the arms, and also here you've got the same thing, the same attitude in men. Yeah. So this is also attested. So you see examples in Amana, in Thebes, and also in several tombs in the Memphis area. Yeah? So tombs dated to the end of Amana and post-Amana period, where you see wonderful compositions. You know, so you see this man, this is something in a composition which is more or less like a triangle, very, very expressive. Also, in the tomb of Kleinhardt in Saqqara, in a fragment relief at the Berlin Museum. So here you see, for example, probably fire, the funerary ritual, breaking pots. So this mourning men. So there are many examples. I'm just showing you a couple of them, a couple of examples. So this type of new rendering of innovation may be an example of transfer of innovation between Thebes and Memphis. Another part of my research was trying to track the movement of innovations has to do with the terms of depth and perspective. We could mention, for example, the tomb of Na, TT 52. So we should see some kind of attempt of depth in the undulating line existing between the two registers. And also, exactly this same composition can be found in TT 57. So sorry for the bad quality of the picture. And also, this kind of innovation is found on the tomb of Horemheb in Saqqara. So you see the same, you know, different, and also this is even more original. For example, you see this man, so it's just a minute, so the undulating line showing some kind of division of undulating landscape, showing even on this undulating, you know, the composition is really lively. And also in the tomb of Horemheb, in a fragment from the tomb found in the Bologna collection, you can find a very original scene where you see the troops, which seems to be climbing up. Yeah, so instead of the typical order registers, they should be climbing to a mountain or to wherever, to a platform. So very interesting. So this is very unusual in Egyptian paintings. And of course, we've got new insights from Memphis. So I think this is probably the most promising place where we could find innovation. So we may quote some of the features of this period. So as quoting Malek, so he says the Mana artists who arrived in the Memphis area are now inspired an unprecedented upsurge in the standard of the tomb decoration. Yeah, so it's probably the movement of the best artists who were working in Amana to Memphis, which some kind of reaction to this high quality tombs that we can find at the end of the Amana period, and also on the 19th dynasty. There are many examples of these tombs being excavated in the past decades, such as Horemheb, Maya, many of them. I would like just to focus on one specific tomb, very interesting one, excavated by Arte CV. Is part of the tombs in the Buba Stadium. It's the tomb of Kenan Titmes. It's tomb 19. It's the so-called tomb of the artist, executed by a master artist, probably Titmes himself. So there were brothers and also artists, and also the origin of this artist, this painter, should be traced back to Thebes. So they mention his father, Amandine Madelpech, who was chief of draftsmen in the el-Medina, in the place of Ma'ad. Curiously, Titmes is represented in this tomb. It's a very small tomb, but a high quality painting, really wonderful tomb, and it's depicted with his palette, you know, the same kind of composition that noble men usually represent themselves with the scepter, yeah, also with the palette, yeah. You say the painter's palette with the pigments. Yeah, it's a very curious representation. And also connected with this interesting find of this tomb, which is it's a painter's tomb, just placed between many other tombs connected to Tutankhamun, so in a very special place. So we may infer if this painter had very close connection with the royal family. And we may comment this, so we may make further comments, because as you may know, Ariel Kotlov, one of the best specialists on Egyptian painting, when describing the best examples of Theban painting from the time of Amenhotep, so the so-called Ornate style, stated that we could maybe see the hand of the same artist in many of these wonderful Theban tombs. So she said he was indeed antiquity's equivalent to Michelangelo. So the suggestions made by LNCD, so probably the student from the tomb of Saqqara is this Michelangelo from Thebes, and maybe the student from Saqqara has any relationship to the well-known sculpture from Amara with the same name. So that's a very interesting possibility. So I'd like to sum up, not my conclusion, but my goals in this research. Using British sayings, I love sayings. So it says a rolling stone gather no more. So I think British people use it in some way, so to show the good reasons to settle down. I would like to use it here in a different sense. So artists were moving from one place to another, so they gathered no more, so they were open-minded, they were probably always changing their place of work, and they were probably open-minded to innovations. Of course, the idea of itinerant artists is not new, it's not mine, of course, but it is well accepted that in the late Bronze Age there were itinerant artists, in particular painters and other high-skilled artists. So my proposal is just to transfer this concept to Egyptian art. I mean, we have said that Minoan artists were working at titulada as they did. So why could not have in mind and accept that Egyptian artists were moving along the line, which is much easier. So, of course, the evidence for this itinerant artists in the Mediterranean is well attested by the titulada frescoes, which you may know well, with wonderful technique and wonderful iconography. So one of the best well-known example is the so-called labyrinth frieze with these old Minoan icons, which is a wonderful example of this movement, no, of artists. And also, I'd like to have in mind that, so from my point of view, the deepest artistic changes may have happened in periods of important sociological and political changes, which seemed to be the case of the early Kingdom. So innovation was especially important in the artistic process, although Egyptian art usually returned to its roots. Yeah? So it's usually close to tradition, but probably in a similar way as the Renaissance art looked for inspiration in the art of the classical period. So the goals of my research is, as previous study focused on the direction of the influence from Thebes to Memphis or from Memphis to Thebes, I would like to just research the mobility of artists instead of wondering about who invented first innovations. So setting aside the traditional supposed superiority of the Theban art in the New Kingdom, because it's very well known, and keeping an open mind to the new discoveries of tombs in Egypt, especially in the Memphis area. And I would just like to make some remark about the words we use. So I prefer, so from my point of view, to use artist and not artisan, because for me the word artisan implies an important bundle of meaning related to a manufacturing activity. So maybe it could be suitable for potters, but not for painters and sculptors. I believe New Kingdom's Egyptian painters and sculptors were artists full of creativity, innovation, originality, and renewed inspiration. So we may not deprive Egyptian artists from all these important features in the same way that we will never dare to use the word artisan to describe Michelangelo, the greatest Renaissance artist. So creativity, innovation, originality, renewed exploration, and a never-ending search of perfection is the essence of a good artist. We may or may not label some of these New Kingdom Egyptian painters as genius, but at least I think we have to acknowledge they took the pharaonic painting to the highest level. Thank you very much for your attention.